And that's not necessarily the correct view. But I'm trying to show you the status of what? That Ibn Abbas reached. So much so that some of the people, they called him Al-Bahr. They gave him the nickname, the sea, the ocean. When you study fiqh, as I said, Ibn Abbas had a school of fiqh. You study tafsir, of course he had a school of what? Tafsir. When you study hadith, you're not going to read a narration except that you hear from Ibn Abbas, Sirah, and the list goes on. There's a statement that I'll leave you with of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, that he quotes from some of the pious predecessors such as Sufyan ibn Uyayna, if my memory serves me correctly. He says, إِذَا جَاءَكَ التَّفْسِيرُ عَنْ مُجَاهِدٍ فَحَسْبُكَ بِهِ. He says, when the tafsir comes to you from Mujahid, then that's enough. This man, Mujahid ibn Jabr, he was given, or he was born what? Some of the people of knowledge will leave that off. Al-Muhim, Mujahid was a student of who? He's a student of Ibn Abbas. So some of them said, whenever you read Mujahid saying something, then that's all you need. You don't need to study anything else in tafsir. So what do you think is the case in the status of this young boy? When the Prophet ﷺ died, Ibn Abbas was about 12 to 13 years old. He didn't live with the Rasul ﷺ for all of those years. He didn't reach his peak of mental maturity. He didn't reach his peak of intellectual sophistication. He was a young boy. When the Prophet ﷺ made Hajj, he came on a she-donkey, the hadith says. He says, I got off the donkey and I let the donkey run around between the rows of the people. As if some of the companions disagreed with this. We're praying, we're making salah, you let the animal run around in front of the people? He was a what? He was young. Some of the ulama of hadith, they say that the number of hadith that Ibn Abbas heard from the Prophet ﷺ are no more than 20 narrations. No more than 20 narrations he directly heard from Muhammad ﷺ, yet and still he narrated over 1,000. In other words, the hadiths that he didn't get from Muhammad ﷺ's blessed mouth, he took from what? The other companions. So we have three things, brothers and sisters. The first is the natural intelligence. The second is the dua of the Prophet ﷺ. And the third thing was the diligence, the hirs. Is that he was a hard-working young man, and that's why he became what he became. So this is an example of Muhammad ﷺ's legacy. How he treated the youth, how he respected the youth, how he educated the youth, and how we knew that was the focal point of his teachings. He said, Ya ghulam, inni mu'allimuka kalimatin. He says, oh young man. He didn't say, oh boy, oh walad. He said, oh young man, I will teach you some words. Ihfadillaha yahfadka. Ihfadillaha tajidhu tujahaka. He says, protect Allah, Allah will protect you. Protect Allah, you'll find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in front of you. When you wish to ask, ask Allah. When you seek help from Allah. Know for sure, if the entire ummah came together to benefit you, they would only benefit you with something that Allah wrote for you. And if the entire ummah came together to hurt you, to do physical harm, they wouldn't be able to do so except through what Allah had willed and written upon you. He says that the pens have run dry and the scrolls are rolled and wrapped up. Allah Akbar. That's what he taught Ibn Abbas, and look at the fruit of what he taught Ibn Abbas. So this is one of the examples of Muhammad ﷺ's golden legacy. And that was the legacy of his students, the people that he taught, and how strong they were, and how far they went. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Indeed, it was my honor to come tonight and speak to you brothers and sisters. It was my honor to participate with Ustad Zakaria. It was my honor to be invited here to Al-Ihsan Academy. We ask Allah the Sublime, the Exalted, to accept our righteous deeds, increase our beneficial knowledge and in righteous actions. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
Takbir! Jazakallah khair, brothers. I pray that inshallah I'll continue to guide both of you on the Surat al-Mustaqim. Keep them on the knowledgeable and to expand your knowledge in this deen, inshallah. Okay, we're going to move into the question and answer segment. I'm going to ask our volunteers to go around and collect any questions that are written down on paper. And we're also going to arrange to have the microphone available for anyone who would like to ask questions directly. So, where are my young volunteer brothers? Raul, Yusuf, Zaid, Saeed, Rich, that's Saeed.
Excellent job.
The sisters, if there are any questions, pass them up and we'll get the microphones out as well.
Told you.
Let's get the card. The card right there.
It's okay. I need to be
Where's
here at,
Here's my microphone volunteer from the sister side.
I need to be here at 7:45. So I need to leave like 7:30.
Sister Sophia.
That's 7:40. You got me?
It's 14 minutes left on the video and 17.
About 45 minutes. You was feeling it. You was on fire. You wouldn't stop. I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
I'm gonna give you better this one. There.
Fire.
I also have a mic for the brothers. If anyone wants to
If that dies, use this, please. If that dies, use this. I said if the camera dies, use this, please. The password is 1984. Watch yourself. Laser sharp.
Yeah, Bismillah. Bismillah. The questioner says, explain in some detail, the Prophet ﷺ could not read in relation to his accomplishments.
Question. Bismillah. Allahumma inni astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Question says, the Prophet ﷺ could not read in relation to his accomplishments. I don't know. Maybe it's this. I don't know the intended. I don't understand the question. It says the Prophet ﷺ could not read in relation to his accomplishments. Perhaps the questioner is speaking, what is the connection between the two? Perhaps, like what does the Prophet ﷺ, not being illiterate, what does that have to do with his accomplishments? Perhaps that's the intended meaning. Perhaps, I don't know. Could the questioner please make clear exactly what they mean by this?
Turn on.
Once again, please explain the question a little more. It says the Prophet ﷺ could not read in relation to his accomplishments. I don't know what that means. Do you know what they're talking about? We would love to answer the question, brothers and sisters. Once again, we would love to answer the question and give you the fa'idah. I can only give you the fa'idah if I understand. So please explain the question, inshallah, please. Don't be shy. If it's a brother or a sister, don't be shy. There's nothing to be shy about or embarrassed about. We just need to understand what the question is.
Next question, is making dua after salah an innovation or is it allowed?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. The question says, is making dua after the salah an innovation? And what's the next? What's the rest? Or allowed. Fine. We say yes and no. Yes it is and no it isn't. That's the general answer. As for the specifics, then we must make a brief introduction, which I believe is a very beneficial introduction. And that is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I only created jinn and man to worship me. The only reason why we're breathing is to be slaves of Allah. That's it. It's the only reason why we're alive. That's the only reason why we've been delivered from the darkness to the light. It's to be slaves of Ar-Rahman subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to worship Him, and He has gently, gracefully, courteously explained the nature of Himself to us. Allah has told us about Him, His names, His attributes, what He loves, what He hates. If the nature of our ilah, our God, our deity is kindness, is mercifulness, is courtesy, then it is impossible 101% for Allah to create us, give us a responsibility, and not explain to us how to fulfill that responsibility. Impossible. You understand this? It's what? It's impossible. For me to send my son to school and to tell my son, I want you to do well in school, son. I want you to be the best that you can be. I want you to surpass everyone else in that school. But I don't tell him how. I don't explain to him how. I don't give him the tangible, practical reasons to do good in school. That is not an honest father. Everybody understand this? He's not honest. So therefore, if the father is honest, if he really wants his son or daughter to do well, he's going to do what? He's going to practically teach them how to do well in school. He's going to practically explain to them what to do and what not to do. Everybody understand this example? So therefore, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, and if He's merciful, and if He's kind, then it is a binding condition that He explained to us how to worship Him. That He teach us in detail how to fulfill that purpose. Everybody understand this introduction? Allah creates us. He leaves us with no instruction, no guidance. That's what? We said that's what? Impossible. Why is that impossible? Because He is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Latif, Al-Kareem. Allah is too kind, too merciful to create us and to leave us without specific instruction. So therefore, how do we pray? How do we fast? How do we wear hijab? How do we dress? What do we eat? What we don't eat? All of these things have been explained in detail because they are all acts of worship. How did the Prophet ﷺ pray? What did he say after his prayers? What did he say before his prayers? It has been explained in detail. عَلِمَهُ مَنْ عَلِمَهُ وَجَهِلَهُ مَنْ جَهِلَهُ أَقْبَلَ عَلَيْهِ مَنْ أَقْبَلَ عَلَيْهِ وَأَعْرَضَ عَنْهُ مَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْهُ. Those who know it, and those who don't know it, don't know it. Those who adhere to it, and those who turn away from it, turn away from it. How the Prophet made the salah, what he said, what he did, has been mentioned in the books of Hadith. Some Muslims don't read those books. Some read those books, but they choose to follow with their traditional cultural practices. So what did the Prophet ﷺ do when he made the salah, brothers and sisters? He would seek Allah's forgiveness. One narration says he would make the takbir. One narration tells us that the Prophet ﷺ said, say Subhanallah, say Alhamdulillah, say Allahu Akbar, say La ilaha illallah, recite Ayatul Kursi, recite this surah, recite that surah. Do we have a narration that states that the Prophet ﷺ said, when you make the Fard prayer, make dua? If we do have a narration, then that's what we should do. If we don't have a narration, then we have to do what? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I only created jinn and men except to do what? Follow Muhammad ﷺ. Allah tells us, I've only created man and jinn to follow this man, Muhammad ﷺ. Everybody understand this? So therefore, if you finish the salah, you salam out, you raise your hands, you make a dua, no one can come and say that's an innovation, and that's haram. Because dua is beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ ud'uni astajib lakum. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ عَنْ عِبَادَتِي سَيَدْخُلُونَ جَهَنَّمَ دَاخِلِينَ وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Allah says, and your Lord tells you, call upon me and I will answer your dua. Those who are too hardy for my worship will enter hell in humiliation. So dua is the spirit. It's the heart of ibadah. However, how do you make dua? When do you make dua? And when don't you make dua? The specifics of that is left to who? Imam Ahmed? Imam Shafi'i? Abu Hanifa? Imam Malik? My Imam? My leader? My Sheikh? La. The specifics of that is left to who? Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. The generality, make dua whatever you want to make dua. Pray whatever you want to pray. Now that's. But now you're making dua every single time in a specific manner, in a specific place, with a specific intention, believing that that is the sunnah. Now you say what? You've erred from the path. But if you salam down and you raise your hands, there's nothing wrong with that. If you made dua, there's nothing wrong with that. That's occasionally, time to time, but every single time, as soon as you salam out, what's the first thing I do? Assalamu alaikum. I shake his hand and I do this. I make dua. That's wrong. Because for one, the Prophet ﷺ never did it. And there's nothing that stopped the Prophet ﷺ from doing that. There's nothing that stopped him from doing that. Everybody understand this? Now, I don't want to go too long. I know that it's a very controversial topic, unfortunately. And I know that many Muslims sitting in this room today have different views on it. Abu Sharif says no, Abdul Wadud says yes. This is a reality. Let's be real. In this masjid, as soon as the imam makes the salam, someone grabs the microphone and he makes dua together in sync. Another masjid says, no, this is bid'ah. This is haram. You can't do this. So on and so on and so on and so forth. We say it is a mistake to put a band-aid on a broken finger. It's a mistake to put a band-aid on a broken finger. The first thing that the skilled physician is going to do, he's going to look at the finger. He's going to look at the level of fracture. Is it broken in one place, two places, three places? Is it complex or is it simple? The next step, he's going to do what? He's going to take the bone and he's going to do what? He's going to straighten it back. Then he's going to wrap it and put it and support it. And then he's going to say you need time. You're not allowed to play football for 2 months until your finger heals and grows strong and it's no longer sore. Everybody understand this? So Muslims who make dua after the salah, correctly or incorrectly, Muslims who pray like this, Muslims who fast like this, Muslims who do this, Muslims who do what? We said this, the what? That's the broken finger. And we cannot put a band-aid on that broken finger. We have to straighten the broken bone. And the broken bone is getting Muslims to learn and to understand why they were created. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah says, I only created man and jinn to worship me. Everybody understand the equation? The next step of that equation is, what is the nature of this ma'bud? This deity of worship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is his nature mercy or harshness? Does Allah's wrath outweigh his rahmah or is it the opposite? If Allah has more mercy, then the next equation is what? From his rahmah is that he taught us how to worship him. How to fulfill that general existence. And that is only through one man. And he is Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So it is incorrect to go to a masjid and to fight over these issues. It's bid'ah, it's haram. La. The first step is you have to teach them, remind them, instruct them why bid'ah is bad. What does bid'ah mean? What does it mean? A couple weeks ago at the NJ Dawah conference, it was an issue over the sutra. The imam was offering the salah and he didn't use the sutra. One of our noble brothers gave him advice. And he spoke to him about the sutra. And he says that the Prophet ﷺ used the sutra. The next class that I had to do, one of the questions was, what is a sutra? What does a sutra mean? I've never heard the word in my life. I've been Muslim my entire life. I've never even heard the word. So the first step is not to attack him about the sutra. The first step is to teach him, educate him, inform him why sunnah and why not bid'ah. To teach him how Muhammad prayed, how Muhammad didn't pray. Then, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are steps and stages. That is the tarbiyah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Wallahu a'lam.
Like the next question says, please give some examples of how one can defend the Prophet ﷺ in these days and times that we are living in.
Question says, give one example of how we can defend the Prophet ﷺ in the current days or the current time in which we live in. A very important question, and inshallah a very simple answer. There are many ways of defending the Prophet ﷺ. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi, falam yastati' fa bilisanihi, falam yastati' fa biqalbihi, wa dhalika ala iman al-hadith rawahu Muslim." Any of you who sees an evil should change it with his hands. If he cannot do so, speak out against it. If he cannot do so, then at least hate it with his or her heart. And that's the lowest level of iman. This hadith has been collected by a man Muslim. It's an authentic hadith. So we have 3 stages. Someone attacking the Prophet, someone disrespecting the Prophet. We should do what? Physically change it, if we can. And what's meant by istata'a, it doesn't necessarily mean physical strength. It doesn't necessarily mean physical strength. But what's meant is having the ability to change the evil, to stop the evil. to conquer the evil without making a greater harm, without making chaos, without destroying something and making it even worse. So the Prophet, he tells us, if someone is disrespecting the Prophet, he's disrespecting me, then stop him physically if you can, without causing what? A greater harm. Without bringing harm upon Muslims and harm upon yourself. If you can't do that physically, if you're too far away, you don't have the ability, then at least what? Speak out against it. Write about it. Write an article about it. Have activism. Have some harakat. Don't keep silent about things that are evil and they're being said about the Prophet ﷺ. And if you can't, I'm not a scholar, I'm not strong, I don't have the ability, I can't articulate, then at least do what? Hate it with your heart. At least do what? Hate it with your heart. And when you hate someone with your heart, it's going to become manifest in your actions. So therefore, defending the Prophet ﷺ, we say is of two stages in brief. The first is the general defense, and the second is the specific defense. As for the general defense, then every single Muslim is responsible for doing that. Every Muslim. As for the specifics of speaking, of talking, of physically acting, then that is for those who are qualified. How many articles have been written about Muhammad ﷺ in his marriage to Aisha? How many books are there on the Prophet ﷺ's battles and his conquests? How much information is available with regards to other faiths, Jews and Christians in Islam, interfaith, tolerance, the list goes on. In other words, it's no need for me to write anything. It's no need for me to say this and to speak this because it's been done already by someone who's better, stronger, and more thorough than me. So don't speak with ignorance. You can defend the Prophet ﷺ by being a Muslim, by looking like a Muslim, walking down the street as a Muslim. Omar, not to point you out, many other brothers, Nafis is not here. How many places have we been, Omar? Planes, boats, buses, trains, where non-Muslims have walked up to us and engaged us and asked us questions. How many places, Omar? Without any exaggeration. And we didn't say anything or do anything, but just walking, being clean, being nice in a presentable fashion. Muslims are clean. Muslims are courteous. Muslims are respectful. Muslims, look how he is with his wife. Look how he is with his children. Only Allah knows how many places I've been with my kids, and kuffar, not Muslims, kuffar, have stopped me and said, your children are so beautiful. You're doing such a nice job with your children. They sat down. Your son is so well behaved. You don't think the kuffar are looking and watching and observing? And if I have on a dress and a head cap, then this obviously I'm representing what? Muhammad, not Islam. I'm representing Muhammad. This killer, this murderer, this pedophile, this. So that's what the media says. That's the propaganda in the news. But then they see one of his followers and how he behaves and how he treats people, how he respects himself. What do you think is stronger? The media or what you do on an airplane? Without a doubt. So there's many ways of defending the Prophet ﷺ, and sometimes the best way of defending him is by living through excellence. Living what? Through excellence. Allah.
And inshallah, we'll only take a couple more questions. The next question is, should we say takbir and then Allahu Akbar? What is the ruling on saying takbir and Allahu Akbar?
As far as the question regarding saying takbir and Allahu Akbar, then perhaps the question is talking about the salah. Perhaps they're talking about salah. And as a piece of advice, brothers and sisters, the better you word your question, the more thorough your question is, the more concise your question is, the better answer you will get. Because the word takbir is, you can say takbir when you slaughter, you can say takbir on the days of Eid, you can say takbir in the salah, janazah prayer. There are many times in which a person says takbir. So the better your question is worded, the better your answer will be what? Given, bidnillah. So perhaps they're talking about the salah. We say it's a simple issue. It's no need for any harshness or strictness. If a person wishes, he can raise his hand, say Allahu Akbar, or say Allahu Akbar, then raise the hands. Or perhaps he can say Allahu Akbar, simultaneously raising the hands and making the takbir. Inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all three ways, all three styles, bidnillah, are permissible. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay, inshallah, we'll take one more question. The next question that we got is it permissible to say subhanallah when you hear or see something amazing?
The Question says, is it permissible to say subhanallah when you hear or see something amazing? We say yes. We say yes. There are many proofs for this in the Quran and in the Sunnah. From them is that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us of. We'll take one more after this as well. Okay. Inshallah. We say in brief what subhanallah means. Before we get to saying it, what does subhanallah mean? Subhanallah is not necessarily a means of praise. It's not necessarily a means of praise, but in actuality is a declaration of Allah's perfection. It is to declare and to proclaim that Allah is what? Perfect. And He's far beyond anything which is bad and negative. Everybody understand this? When you say Alhamdulillah, that's praising Allah. Everybody understand this? You're lauding Allah. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're declaring Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's what? Perfection. And He's free from any imperfection. But when you say subhanallah, it means that Allah is above and Allah is beyond that which does not suit His greatness. So if you see something amazing, it could be something that's haram. It could be something that is said about Allah or His Rasul or His deen, which is what? Inappropriate. And a person will say, subhanallah. In other words, what you just said and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like what? There's no comparison. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is nowhere near what you just said. Alhamdulillah, barakah, inshallah. Tayyib, the water, let's not forget. Tayyib, we say what? It all depends on what you see. If you see something haram, if you see something that you're not supposed to see, perhaps you may say something else. But the general concept is, if I spill the water, I say what? Subhanallah. Allah is perfect. Allah doesn't make any mistakes. Allah. Last question, inshallah.
Okay, the next question is, what should we say to those that suggest that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam has the responsibility for the current state of Muslims?
Question says, what should we say to those who suggest that Muhammad ﷺ has the responsibility for the current state of Muslims? Well, I would say it all depends on what you mean by the current state of the Muslims. And before we go on, brothers and sisters, I want to let you know one thing, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, there are many questions on the desk. I'm sure there are even more questions. I just want you guys to know, inshallah, if it wasn't for the fact that I have a prior engagement that I'm already late for, another masjid that we have obligations to, I would stay here and I would try to answer all of your questions. So before I leave, please, inshallah, please, I don't want anyone to get upset or feel upset that the question didn't get answered, please. If I had the time tonight, I would answer all of your questions. And Allah knows that I'm not exaggerating. I would, honestly. But we have to go. We're behind schedule. We have another masjid that we have to go to. So that's as a disclaimer. Perhaps, inshallah, maybe we'll have another meeting in which we can come back and answer your questions. Every single question is important. Everybody is significant, inshallah, to me. But we just don't have that time. This question here, I would say it all depends on what you mean by current state of the Muslims. If you mean the positivity, the good things that the Muslims are doing today, then there lies no doubt. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Muhammad sallallahu is responsible for what the Muslims are doing. In Malaysia, in Zimbabwe, in Yemen, in Morocco, in Egypt, Mali, Algeria, Zimbabwe, and the list goes on. The salat that they make, the zakat that they give, the fasting that they perform, the hajj that they undertake, and the list goes on. Al-Khair, good. So oftentimes we get caught up in negativity. What is the current state of the Muslims? Are all of the Muslims upon misguidance? Are all of the Muslims doing things that are bad and negative? Are there no Muslims that are doing groundbreaking things today? So let's focus on the good, positive aspects of what the Muslims are doing. And no matter what happens, no matter what takes place, there's always going to be a group of Muslims that remain steadfast. So if that's what you mean, yes, alhamdulillah, Muhammad is responsible after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As far as if you mean negative things, haram things, bad things, then we say Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam isn't responsible for that, because he only taught what? Khair. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he only taught positivity. He never taught negativity. He never encouraged and influenced negativity, whether it's against yourself or against others. So if a Muslim, hypothetically, we say what? Hypothetically, if a Muslim commits suicide or kills someone unjustly or hijacks a plane or does this, that was not the teaching of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Indeed, Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, when he entered Mecca, the people who kicked him out of Mecca, who tried to assassinate him, the people who tortured his followers, who accused them of what they accused him of, what did he do? He pardoned and he forgave most of them. He didn't take revenge against them. He didn't slaughter them in the streets. The streets of Mecca were not slippery with the fat of human beings as the non-Muslims did when they entered cities. They killed so many people, they burnt so much. They said they put so many books in the water that they said the water was green and blue. They raped so many people that the next city, all of the girls, they shaved their heads and they cut their heads because they didn't want to be known as women. That's not what Muhammad did. That's what the kuffar did. That's how they treated their enemies when they fought them. So Muhammad's legacy is clear and simple. He fought when he had to fight. He defended himself when he had to defend himself. He went on the offense when he had to go on the offense. And when he did, it was in the boundaries of what Allah had revealed to him. He was not oppressive. He was not a tyrant. He was not vengeful. He was not evil. He did not promote these things. When the man, I'll leave you one narration, the hadith in Sahih Muslim, that the Prophet ﷺ, he got news of a man who killed himself. A man who took an arrow and he stabbed himself and he poked himself with the arrow. The Prophet ﷺ refused to offer the janazah prayer on him. He said someone else can pray upon him. In other words, the Prophet ﷺ clearly condemned what? So what the Muslims do or what the Muslims don't do, what the non-Muslims do, that's bad and negative and evil, Muhammad ﷺ has nothing to do with those things. He only taught good, even in the state and time of killing and fighting. It was what? It was positive. Negativity has nothing to do with the religion of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Wallahu alam. Once again, please forgive me, brothers and sisters. We have to leave. Jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Again, thank you very much, brother. We are, of course, coming to a close for our function as well. Inshallah, we have one more item on our agenda, and that is our vote of thanks.